Welcome to Bible Stories, a series delving into the profound mysteries and timeless lessons found within Scripture and history. In this episode, we explore one of the most captivating questions surrounding Christianity's origins: who really founded the Catholic Church, and what forces were truly at play? This episode unveils a complex story about the Church's rise and its lasting impact on faith and society, exploring ancient teachings, powerful figures, hidden motives, and political strategies. As we uncover these mysteries, we invite you to journey deeper into the layers of history and religious studies. In this episode of Bible Stories, we will delve into the profound mysteries and timeless lessons found within Scripture and history. We will explore the question of who founded the Catholic Church and the forces that were at play. This episode will unveil a complex story about the Church's rise and its lasting impact on faith and society. We will look beyond what is commonly told and explore the layers of history. We will examine whether the Church's influence was a purely spiritual evolution or a blend of faith and calculated power. We will explore how emperors, councils, and historical figures shaped what would become one of the most influential institutions in the world. If you are as fascinated by these questions as we are, please subscribe to Bible Stories so you don't miss out on future explorations into the rich history of our faith. Please like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and the present study aims to explore the hidden layers of biblical history and their contemporary relevance. By engaging with this subject, we can begin to understand how the establishment of the Catholic Church has shaped the core of Christianity, influencing faith, gathering followers, and fostering an air of mystery. The question of who truly lies behind the establishment of the Catholic Church has captivated and unsettled believers and skeptics alike for generations. The present study will explore the possibility that the stories passed down through millennia are not as accurate as they seem, and that there may be a concealed layer within the Church's formation. The question of the origins of the Catholic Church is one that has captivated the imaginations of believers and skeptics alike for generations. The institution has exerted a profound influence on the development of Christianity, from its early days as a spiritual movement to its current manifestation as a global entity with a complex and often enigmatic history. The question, therefore, is whether the Catholic Church has origins that extend beyond the traditional historical account. If so, who was responsible for this profound shift in religious history? One possibility is that the historical accounts are not as accurate as they seem, and that there are hidden layers to the Church's formation that are cloaked in secrecy, control, and the ambitions of influential figures. To explore this narrative, we must confront the possibility that the Catholic Church's foundation was not solely a spiritual evolution, but rather a calculated alliance between faith and politics, a deliberate blend of the divine and the strategic. The conventional narrative depicts the Catholic Church as rising from the early Christian movement, inspired by the teachings and legacy of Jesus Christ and his devoted followers. After Jesus' death, his disciples spread across the Roman Empire, sharing a message of love, salvation, and transformation. This early faith. However, this nascent faith encountered fierce opposition, leading to brutal persecution as it challenged Rome's authority and disrupted ancient pagan traditions. Nevertheless, this small movement not only survived but ultimately prevailed, becoming the empire's official religion. Was this remarkable rise solely attributable to the power of Christian teachings? Or was there an unseen hand guiding its expansion? In today's complex world, many of us question whether there is more to the Bible than what has been taught. Ancient texts may hold hidden knowledge that answers life's most profound questions. That is why the creation of the digital book, The Hidden Secrets of the Bible, discovering the esoteric wisdom and powers tailored for seekers like you, was undertaken to explore the esoteric wisdom and powers found in biblical passages. The book sheds light on previously unexplored layers of meaning, offering insights that may be of interest to individuals seeking to deepen their spiritual connection. Those interested in unlocking these mysteries and acquiring the knowledge contained within are encouraged to click the first pinned comment to download their copy. It is emphasized that this transformative knowledge is available for a limited time only. Individuals who wish to embark on their journey into the Bible's hidden wisdom are invited to tap the link and download the digital book. Among the pivotal Emperor Constantine was a pivotal figure in the development of Christianity, whose decisions significantly impacted the early Church. Prior to Constantine's reign, Christianity was characterized by diversity, with numerous sects and varied interpretations. However, as a skilled politician and strategist, Constantine recognized the potential of Christianity's growing influence. He understood that unifying his empire under a single religion could stabilize his rule and expand his authority over Rome's extensive and often turbulent territories. This transformation of Christianity from a persecuted movement to a state-sanctioned religion was a significant milestone in the history of religious persecution and acceptance. The transformation of Christianity from a persecuted movement to a state-endorsed religion gives rise to further inquiries. Was Constantine's adoption of Christianity driven by authentic faith, or was it a calculated maneuver to harness faith for political stability? Constantine's historic shift toward religious tolerance commenced in 313 AD with the Edict of Milan, a monumental decree that granted religious freedom across the Roman Empire. The question of whether Constantine's adoption of Christianity was driven by authentic faith or strategic maneuver remains a subject of historical debate. His transition toward religious tolerance became evident in 313 AD with the Edict of Milan, a significant decree that guaranteed religious freedom throughout the empire. However, his role and influence further elevated in 325 AD when he convened the Council of Nicaea, a gathering of church leaders aimed at unifying Christian doctrine. This event is widely regarded as the inception of the institutionalized Catholic Church. Nevertheless, it is pertinent to question whether Constantine's actions were motivated by genuine faith or if this was a calculated step in his strategic agenda. Constantine's motivations for convening the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD are a subject of historical debate. Was he driven by a genuine belief in the unity of Christian doctrine, or was this a strategic move in his broader plan to utilize faith as a tool to advance his political agenda? Despite the prevalence of accounts that emphasize Constantine's vision of the cross before the Battle of the Milvian Bridge, some historical sources suggest that his conversion may have been more pragmatic than spiritual. At the Council of Nicaea, he and a group of bishops formally established a standardized version of Christian beliefs, which suggests a calculated and strategic approach to religious unification. Constantine's actions and motivations in establishing the Church have been a subject of historical analysis and debate. Some theorists posit that Constantine's conversion to Christianity was a strategic move, a means to consolidate power through the instrument of the Church. This assertion is based on the premise that Constantine, in collaboration with a group of bishops, formally established a standardized version of Christian beliefs at the Council of Nicaea, and that this act was driven by a desire to align the Church with his imperial ambitions. Theories suggest that Constantine deliberately selected doctrines that would support his governance, positioning the Church to become a vehicle for spreading his influence. The historical record indicates that the Church emerged as an institution with the backing of imperial endorsement, allowing it to disseminate its influence extensively. Given these historical and theological complexities, it is not surprising that conspiracy theories have emerged, challenging the established narrative of Constantine's motivations and intentions. The origins of the Catholic Church are shrouded in conspiracy theories, given the politically charged environment of its early development. One theory posits that the Church was established as a tool to consolidate power in Rome, veiled in the guise of salvation. From this perspective, the Church was not purely a divine institution, but also a construct designed to channel loyalty. In considering the political environment surrounding the origins of the Catholic Church, the question arises of whether the institution was established as a means of consolidating power in Rome under the guise of salvation. From this perspective, the Church can be understood as a construct designed to channel loyalty and obedience toward the empire. The question thus arises as to whether Constantine was the mastermind behind this institution, or whether he was merely a pawn in a more complex web of political and perhaps darker forces. This line of thought suggests a hidden history marked by secrecy, covert agreements, and veiled ambitions as the Church solidified its influence over the Western world. Constantine's role in this process is a subject of debate, with some theorizing that he was a pivotal figure in establishing the Church's foundations, while others suggest that his actions were influenced by hidden forces. The notion that external entities, such as secret societies or hidden agendas, played a deliberate role in the rise of the Catholic Church is a contentious one. One perspective posits that Christianity was strategically adapted to serve as a unifying force, a theory that has been met with criticism and further examination. This unification may have been spurred by influences deeply intertwined with the empire's structure, potentially from clandestine groups pursuing undisclosed objectives. Some interpretations suggest that these enigmatic groups may have been precursors to entities such as the Knights Templar or even the Illuminati. It has been theorized that mystical traditions, incorporating elements of Gnosticism and ancient paganism, played a role in this process. The hypothesis that Christianity was influenced by external factors is one that has been a subject of considerable debate. Some theorists posit that these influences may have originated from clandestine groups working towards undisclosed objectives. These groups, it is argued, may have been precursors to entities such as the Knights Templar or the Illuminati. The theory posits that mystical traditions, including aspects of Gnosticism and ancient pagan beliefs, infiltrated early Christianity. However, these elements were subsequently suppressed during the Council of Nicaea, which led to the adoption of doctrines that served to bolster imperial rule. The presence of this hidden layer within the Church's foundation adds an intriguing dimension to its history, suggesting that its creation was more intricate than commonly recognized. Furthermore, symbols central to Christianity, such as the cross, may have originated from or been influenced by these external factors. The notion that the symbols central to Christianity may have origins predating the faith itself is a provocative one. For instance, the cross, closely associated with Christianity, was a significant symbol in ancient pagan rituals before becoming emblematic of Christ's sacrifice. This raises the question of whether Christianity was shaped by external influences to serve a broader, possibly darker purpose. Some theorists believe that such symbols the question of whether external influences shaped Christianity from its inception to serve a broader, possibly darker purpose is a complex one. Some theorists posit that the selection of certain symbols, such as the cross, was deliberate, aiming to leverage existing associations with power, transformation, and even mortality concepts. These theorists contend that these symbols could be used to serve an agenda that extends beyond mere spiritual enlightenment. The notion that the Catholic Church may have been designed to obscure the original essence of Christianity is particularly intriguing, as it raises pressing questions about the historical development of the religion. Early Christianity emphasized a personal connection to the divine and spiritual independence, values that some argue might have threatened centralized religious authority. Rather than fostering direct communion with God, the Church emerged as an intermediary, seizing control of spiritual access and, by extension, political influence. The disappearance of certain ancient texts during this period is a significant aspect of the discussion, as it suggests a potential cover-up or deliberate destruction of information that could provide more clarity on the historical context of Christianity's development. The Gospels of Thomas and Mary Magdalene are further evidence of an effort to control the narrative. These texts offered alternative views of Jesus' teachings and were consequently labeled heretical and systematically destroyed. Centuries later, fragments of these writings hinted at a form of Christianity focused on spiritual freedom and introspection. The question of the role of Peter, the apostle venerated by the Catholic Church as its first pope, is particularly compelling. Why was Peter selected over Paul, whose contributions significantly shaped early Christianity? Some propose that Peter was selected not only for his faith but also because of his character. The Gospels of Thomas and Mary Magdalene suggest an effort to control the narrative. These texts offer alternative views of Jesus' teachings and were labeled heretical and systematically destroyed. Centuries later, fragments of these writings hinted at a form of Christianity focused on spiritual freedom and introspection rather than rigid institutional authority. The question of whether Peter, the apostle venerated by the Catholic Church as its first pope, was selected based on his character aligning with Constantine's vision for an institution he could govern, or whether it was due to his faith, is a particularly compelling one. By controlling the narrative and sidelining dissent, the Church solidified itself as the supreme authority in both spiritual and temporal matters. In the Church's ascendancy, those who challenged or questioned it faced suppression. This suggests that early Christianity may have presented a genuine threat to the established order. Could the Catholic Church have been intentionally shaped to reinforce the power structures? Constantine's vision for an institution that he could govern was to control the narrative and sideline dissent. This allowed the Church to solidify its position as the supreme authority in both spiritual and temporal matters. During the Church's rise to power, those who challenged or questioned it faced suppression. This suggests that early Christianity may have presented a genuine threat to the established order. One must consider whether the Church was founded as an institution of control, merging religious and political power into one potent entity. For some, its establishment was the first step in a larger plan that continues to unfold even today. In medieval hierarchies, authority was centralized either under the emperor or the pope. These figures were seen as divine representatives who dictated both spiritual and worldly laws. One significant chapter in this church, the Church's role in the development of the medieval state system, is a topic of significant interest. The donation of Constantine, a legendary act of bestowing lands and power to Pope Sylvester and the Roman Church by Constantine before his death, is a well-documented event. This donation has been interpreted as a legitimization of the Church's growing influence across Europe. However, subsequent analysis by Renaissance scholars has called this attribution into question, suggesting that the document may be a forgery. This has led to speculation about the true authorship of the donation and its potential motives. One hypothesis suggests that the document was a conspiracy within the Church to assert supremacy over state alliances. The donation of Constantine. Legend claims that before his death, Constantine granted extensive lands and power to Pope Sylvester and the Roman Church, reinforcing the Church's claim to both spiritual and political authority. For centuries, this document was used to justify the Church's expansive influence across Europe. However, Renaissance scholars exposed it as a forgery, raising critical questions. Who crafted the donation and for what purpose? Some suggest it was an internal conspiracy within the Church designed to assert supremacy over Christendom. Further speculation suggests that a secret faction within the Church employed this document to extend its power. Others believe the papacy knowingly exploited the forged donation to assert dominance over European monarchs. The Church's authority to crown and dethrone rulers, especially within the Holy Roman Empire, exemplifies this symbiotic relationship between secular and ecclesiastical authority. While the Church conferred legitimacy upon monarchs, numerous clashes occurred as popes and emperors vied for ultimate control. One of the most notable conflicts, the investiture controversy of the 10th century, in which the authority of spiritual and secular leaders collided, underscored the tension in a power struggle that reverberated through European history. If you are as intrigued by these complex layers of history as we are, please like this video and share it with others who are curious about the untold stories of the Catholic Church. Together, we can continue to explore the mysteries that shape our understanding of this ancient institution. In the annals of history, few events capture the complex relationship between the Church and the secular world as well as the investiture controversy. The Church and the monarchy collaborated to maintain a social hierarchy that benefited both realms. For instance, the Church orchestrated the iconic walk to Canossa in 1077, during which Emperor Henry IV was excommunicated and compelled to make a pilgrimage to Canossa and beg forgiveness. This event was regarded as a carefully staged demonstration of the Church's authority, designed to emphasize its dominance while balancing power with secular rulers. These displays reinforced public loyalty to a system that preserved the influence of both the Church and the monarchy. Supporters of these theories suggest that behind the Church and monarchs collaborated to uphold a social hierarchy that was advantageous for both realms. Education and cultural control were among the most effective instruments the Church used to shape society. For centuries, the Church maintained a near monopoly on education across Europe, overseeing schools and universities to ensure that secular knowledge aligned with Catholic teachings. Charlemagne's Palatine School, under the guidance of clergy, exemplifies this union of knowledge and doctrine, ensuring that academic pursuits supported the Church's principles. Monastic institutions also played a significant role in this endeavor. The Church and monarchs collaborated to uphold the social hierarchy that served their interests. Education and cultural control were among the Church's most effective tools for shaping society. For centuries, the Church maintained a near monopoly on education across Europe, managing schools and universities to ensure that secular knowledge aligned with Catholic teachings. Charlemagne's Palatine School, under the guidance of clergy, exemplifies this union of knowledge and doctrine, ensuring that academic pursuits supported the Church's principles. Monastic scribes controlled information by transcribing manuscripts. While preserving religious texts, these monks reportedly edited or omitted portions that might challenge church authority, selectively controlling the knowledge accessible to the populace. Believers in this narrative argue that the Church deliberately hid ideas that could have reshaped society, suppressing certain texts and theories, especially those challenging its doctrines. This allowed the Church to shape not only religious belief, but also intellectual and cultural growth. Galileo Galilei's trial is an example of this control. The Church's control over information is further exemplified by its role in the transcription of manuscripts, a practice that not only preserves religious texts but also allows for the selective editing or omission of content that might challenge church authority. This selective editing of historical records has been argued to have been a deliberate strategy to control the knowledge accessible to the populace. The Church's influence extends beyond religious belief, as evidenced by its actions in suppressing texts and theories that challenge its doctrines. This control over knowledge has been seen in the Galileo affair, where the Church condemned Galileo for proposing a heliocentric model, despite the geocentric view being the prevailing scientific consensus at the time. This event has been interpreted as an attempt by the Church to maintain its centrality as God's earthly representative, regardless of the theological objections raised. The Galileo affair has been seen as a broader example of the Church's agenda to control intellectual discourse, with theories emerging that suggest the Catholic Church's influence extended beyond its religious sphere. The Church's promotion of a heliocentric model can be seen as a means of exerting control over people's perceptions of the world. When Galileo challenged the geocentric view, the Inquisition condemned him. Was this an earnest theological objection, or was it an attempt to uphold a worldview in which the Church, as God's earthly representative, remained central? For those questioning the Church's motives, the Galileo affair exemplifies a broader agenda of intellectual control, protecting its authority by limiting alternative perspectives. As layers of history are examined, theories emerge suggesting that the Catholic Church's influence went beyond spiritual matters, extending to the political and social landscapes of medieval Europe. From suppressing alternate gospels to forming alliances with monarchs, the Church's role in history reveals a complexity that questions its traditional portrayal. Through the manipulation of historical records, selective censorship, and close alliances with ruling elites, the Catholic Church became a power that transcended borders, kingdoms, and empires. This power consolidation raises a profound question. Were these actions part of a broader plan to control humanity? The Church's actions during the medieval period indicate a far-reaching influence that extends beyond the religious sphere, encompassing political and social domains. Its actions, including the suppression of alternative gospels and the formation of alliances with monarchs, suggest a complexity that challenges traditional portrayals of its role in history. The Church's manipulation of historical records, selective censorship, and close alliances with ruling elites suggest an ambition to transcend geographical and political boundaries. This consolidation of power prompts the profound question of whether these actions were part of a deliberate plan to influence humanity's destiny by positioning the Church as the exclusive conduit between society and the divine. As the Church's influence expanded, its reach extended beyond mere guidance of national politics, profoundly impacting various aspects of life and influencing the social and cultural perceptions of the masses. A notable method of maintaining control was the Inquisition, initially established to combat heresy but often perceived as a tool for policing dissent and stifling opposition. The Inquisition's extensive network of informants and interrogations, particularly those led by the Dominican, underscores the institution's comprehensive and pervasive influence. The Church's approach to cultural integration included adapting pagan symbols and traces of pagan practices into its own traditions. This approach, which was adopted in an effort to assert its supremacy, encompassed a wide range of activities. Among the most notable of these activities was the institution of the Inquisition, which was initially established to identify and remove heretics from society. However, it is important to note that the Inquisition also served as a means of controlling public opinion and stifling opposition to the Church's policies. The Inquisition's extensive network of informants and interrogators, particularly those belonging to the Dominican and Franciscan orders, relied on the use of severe torture to extract confessions from suspects. Many victims were forced to admit crimes they had not committed, using psychological and physical anguish as a means of securing obedience. According to some scholars, the Inquisition's mission extended beyond the pursuit of religious purity, serving as a means to suppress intellectual independence that could potentially undermine the Church's doctrines. Alongside the Inquisition, censorship and propaganda became instruments of influence. Art and literature were subject to tight control to ensure that they reflected a worldview that underscored the Church's supremacy. The Inquisition's mission, according to some scholars, extended beyond the pursuit of religious purity, serving as a means to suppress intellectual independence that could potentially undermine the Church's doctrines. Censorship and propaganda became instruments of influence during this period, with art and literature being closely controlled to reflect a worldview that underscored the Church's supremacy. Massive cathedrals and works of art, such as St. Peter's Basilica, served as visual affirmations of the Church's divine authority. During the Renaissance, the Church became a major patron of the arts, commissioning iconic pieces by renowned artists like Michelangelo and Raphael. These masterpieces, revered today for their beauty, also reinforced the Church's grandeur, instilling a sense of awe and reverence in the public. The Church's approach to cultural integration included adapting pagan symbols and traditions, blending them into Christian practices to facilitate conversions. The Church's alignment of Christmas with the winter solstice, a significant pagan celebration, and Easter with springtime rituals symbolizing rebirth facilitated the integration of Christian beliefs into various cultural practices. The adoption of the cross, a symbol with long-standing significance in ancient cultures, further connected Christian beliefs with powerful and widely respected images. This strategic syncretism, characterized by its accidental nature, enabled Christianity to appear familiar to diverse societies, fostering a unified identity across various regions and strengthening the Church's influence by supporting artists. For instance, Christmas was aligned with the winter solstice, a significant pagan celebration, while Easter corresponded with springtime rituals symbolizing rebirth. The adoption of the cross, which had long held symbolic significance in ancient cultures, also served to connect Christian beliefs with powerful, widely respected images. This strategic syncretism was accidental. It allowed Christianity to feel familiar to diverse societies, fostering a unified identity across various regions and making the Church's influence more robust by supporting artists and integrating respected symbols. The Church positioned itself as an enduring authority. Over time, this combination of faith and tradition helped to secure its role as a cornerstone of European society. The Church's involvement in artistic, educational, and historical interpretation ensured it remained central to everyday life, providing both spiritual guidance and cultural influence. The Church's authority reached unprecedented heights during the Age of Exploration. As European powers expanded into the Americas, the Church justified colonial conquests as missions to spread Christianity. This merging of religious zeal with political ambition framed conversion as a duty, with European empires eager to convert indigenous populations and bring their territories under Church influence. Religious orders such as the Jesuits, Franciscans, and Dominicans played key roles in these missions, dismantling native belief systems and replacing them with Christian doctrines. In this process, entire cultures, languages, and spiritual practices were nearly eradicated, replaced by new religious structures and teachings. The Church's alignment with colonial powers masked a deeper strategy of cultural control. Conversion promises were often coupled with the assurance of protection from the abuses of colonial authorities, casting the Church as both a sanctuary and a powerful enforcer. While some missionaries advocated for the protection of indigenous populations, such as Bartolomé de las Casas, the institution's overall stance leaned towards supporting colonial dominance. This ambivalence sparked internal conflicts within the Church, with some clergy viewing colonization as a religious obligation, while others saw the Church's engagement in conversion policies was often accompanied by pledges of safeguarding indigenous populations from the abuses of colonial authorities, positioning itself as a sanctuary and a formidable enforcer. While some missionaries, such as Bartolomé de las Casas, advocated for the protection of indigenous populations, the Church's overall stance leaned towards supporting colonial dominance. This ambivalence gave rise to internal conflicts within the Church, with some clergy perceiving colonization as a religious obligation, while others viewed it as cultural devastation. In its endeavor to blend spiritual mission with political influence, the Church expanded its influence to millions of lives. Its dominance in art, education, and historical narrative enabled it to become a central figure in both sacred and secular matters, shaping a worldview that positioned it as the ultimate authority. Through calculated alliances, suppression of dissent, and cultural integration, the Church consolidated its position not just as a religious body, but also as a significant force in shaping the destinies of civilizations and nations. It is imperative to bear this in mind. An examination of the hidden layers of the Church's history offers a glimpse into a broader narrative. The digital book The Hidden Secrets of the Bible, Understanding the Wisdom and Power Contained Within Sacred Texts is now available for seekers like you. The insights within could unlock a profound connection to sacred wisdom, but act soon. This knowledge is available only for a limited time. Over time, Christian processions and rituals began to overshadow indigenous celebrations in the Americas, subtly merging European beliefs with native customs. Aspects of indigenous in the process of adopting Christianity, traditions were discreetly absorbed, thereby rendering the transition to the new faith appear more seamless and natural. Indeed, the new faith appeared to be an extension of local culture, rather than an external imposition. This amalgamation of beliefs led to a profound transformation of the cultural identities of native societies, ultimately establishing European religious practices as the dominant norm. Many religious leaders regarded this transformation as a victorious mission, responsible for the dissemination of Christianity across the globe. However, the legacy of this religious expansion is deeply controversial. Scholars often argue that these conversions were more than mere acts. Traditions were discreetly absorbed, causing the transition to Christianity to appear almost effortless and organic, as if the new faith were merely an extension of local culture. This combination of beliefs profoundly influenced the cultural identities of native societies, ultimately establishing European religious practices as the predominant norm. Many religious leaders regarded this transformation as a triumphant mission, disseminating Christianity across the globe. Nevertheless, the legacy of this religious expansion is subject to extensive debate. Scholars frequently contend that these conversions were more than mere acts of faith. They were, in essence, a form of cultural erasure or ethnocide, wherein evangelization became a justification for exploitation and dominance. This amalgamation of faith, power, and politics has resulted in a complex legacy, one that continues to fuel modern debates about the Church's motivations and impact in the New World. When we contemplate the Catholic Church's extensive influence throughout history, we reach a critical juncture where established perspectives on these events are called into question. Was the Church's power merely a consequence of its influence, or, as some theories suggest, part of a far more extensive plan? The Church's strategy to shape the world according to its vision underwent significant changes during the transition from the medieval period to the early modern era. This period is characterized by the emergence of prominent figures such as Martin Luther and John Calvin, who led movements that directly challenged the authority of the Catholic Church. The Protestant Reformation exposed the vulnerabilities of papal power when confronted with organized resistance, leading to a significant shift in spiritual loyalties across Europe. This shift resulted in the flourishing of intellectual freedom outside the constraints of Catholic doctrine. In response, the Catholic Church launched the Counter-Reformation, which aimed to counter these changes and regain its influence. The Reformation movement is characterized by its emphasis on preserving its influence. The establishment of the Jesuit order is a prime example of this strategic shift, which placed significant emphasis on education, diplomacy, and peaceful conversion as a means to regain control. This new intellectual approach stood in contrast to the Church's earlier reliance on force. However, some argue that these seemingly gentle methods were in fact a calculated move to maintain its influence. The Reformation movement, characterized by its focus on preserving its influence, represents a strategic shift in the Church's approach. The establishment of the Jesuit order exemplifies this shift, emphasizing education, diplomacy, and peaceful conversion as a means to regain control. This new intellectual approach contrasts with the Church's earlier reliance on force. However, some argue that these seemingly gentle tactics masked hidden agendas designed to maintain the Church's power. These agendas were also subtle yet equally potent. The emergence of secretive societies, such as the Illuminati in the 18th century, adds a layer of intrigue to these theories. Although often regarded as separate from the Church, some theorists suggest that groups like the Illuminati represent a continuation of the Church's clandestine efforts to shape historical narratives and political futures. The recent discovery of documents within the Vatican's secret archives has fueled such speculation. These once inaccessible records contain correspondences and records that hint at the Church's involvement in significant historical events. For those who challenge the Church's role in shaping history, these archives may contain evidence of an intricate network of influence that has spanned centuries and is potentially still active today. At the heart of these theories lies the notion that the Catholic Church's inception and development were not merely religious events, but rather stages in a long-term strategic plan to influence history. Term strategy aimed at dominating humanity's worldview. If the Church indeed manipulated historical events to secure its power, the implications are vast. One must consider what hidden motivations might drive such influential leaders and institutions. Furthermore, one must consider to what extent our beliefs and perceptions are molded by forces that remain unseen. The Catholic Church's enigmatic origins, deeply interwoven with political, social, and spiritual interests, raise enduring questions. As one delves deeper into history, it becomes essential to recognize that the narratives one knows may not be the complete story. The Church's strategic use of historical events to consolidate its power raises significant questions regarding the hidden motivations of influential leaders and institutions, and the extent to which our beliefs and perceptions are influenced by unseen forces. The Catholic Church's origins, intricately interwoven with political, social, and spiritual interests, invite further examination. It is crucial to recognize that the historical narratives we are familiar with may only reveal a fraction of the complex and potentially more sinister history of the Middle Ages. During this period, the Church strengthened its grip on European knowledge and culture, becoming the predominant force in education and shaping the intellectual landscape of medieval society. The Church effectively controlled nearly all educational institutions, ensuring that instruction was heavily influenced by Catholic doctrine, thereby limiting the availability of secular knowledge. This control over education and the dissemination of knowledge underscores the need for a more thorough and nuanced examination of the Church's historical influence. A thorough examination of the historical record reveals a multifaceted and intricate tapestry of knowledge and ideas that extends far beyond the commonly accepted narratives. During the medieval era, the Church exerted a profound influence over European knowledge and culture, becoming the preeminent institution in the dissemination of education and the shaping of the intellectual landscape of medieval society. The Church exercised a dominant influence over educational institutions, ensuring that the dissemination of knowledge was heavily influenced by Catholic doctrine, thereby creating a significant barrier to the transmission of secular knowledge. This control extended to the preservation of ancient manuscripts, which were copied by monastic scribes. However, theories suggest that these scribes, in their devotion, occasionally altered or omitted sections of text that might contradict Church teachings. Through selective transcription, the Church curated knowledge, determining which ideas would be remembered and which would be forgotten. In this way, the Church not only preserved history but also shaped it, maintaining itself as the ultimate authority on truth and ensuring that its teachings remain. The Church's control over knowledge functioned as a potent instrument, empowering it to influence public understanding from an early age. By restricting access to alternative viewpoints, the Church established itself as the primary source of truth, thereby solidifying its role as both a spiritual and intellectual leader. This deliberate shaping of knowledge and restriction of ideas ensured the Church's influence over the medieval mind, embedding itself at the heart of European society. This influence over knowledge was a dual-sided, edged sword. While the Church preserved important elements of cultural heritage, it also stifled perspectives that might have advanced society in different directions. By curating history and deciding which ideas would endure, the Church guided the intellectual and spiritual path of future generations, embedding its doctrines deeply into the cultural fabric of Europe. Through its complex web of power, knowledge, and belief, the Catholic Church exercised a significant level of influence over medieval society. The Catholic Church has been identified as a significant cultural and intellectual influence, exerting a profound impact on the development of civilization. One notable example of this influence is the historical event of Charlemagne's coronation by the Pope in 800 AD. This event symbolizes the Church's deep involvement in both political and educational spheres. Charlemagne's establishment of the Palatine School aimed to fortify his empire through education grounded in Christian values, overseen by the clergy. This institution placed significant emphasis on unwavering faith and obedience, thereby reinforcing a social hierarchy where both the Church and nobility reigned supreme. The Church's influence extended beyond education, affecting philosophy, science, and historical interpretation. Scientific ideas or philosophies that diverged from Catholic teachings faced immediate suppression. For instance, Galileo's heliocentric theory, which posited that the Earth revolved around the Sun, was met with fierce opposition from the Church as it threatened the geocentric worldview that symbolically placed the Church's centrality to existence, stemming from its exclusive control over knowledge, led to its emergence as a dual authority spiritual and political shaping European culture for centuries. Historians contend that the Church's insistence on a singular worldview confined society within a framework that prioritized Church teachings, thereby reinforcing its position as the supreme authority. By controlling information and suppressing dissent, the Church fostered an atmosphere in which any challenge to its teachings was perceived as a threat not only to religion, but also to the social order itself. The Church's monopoly on knowledge led to the establishment of an intellectual blockade, significantly restricting the dissemination of ideas that could have potentially accelerated progress in science, philosophy, and culture. The Inquisition stands as one of the Church's most formidable instruments for maintaining doctrinal conformity. Originally formed to combat heresy, the Inquisition began as a means of combating heresy but evolved into a formidable tribunal with nearly unrestricted authority. Its reach extended beyond theological dissenters to encompass those whose thoughts and ideas challenged the Church's control. As the Inquisition expanded, it employed increasingly severe measures, particularly in regions like Spain and Italy, where the Church's influence was pronounced. Courts of the Inquisition, led by Dominican and Franciscan monks, used interrogation and torture to extract confessions, thereby suppressing alternative perspectives and maintaining doctrinal conformity. The Inquisition was a formidable tribunal that wielded near unrestricted authority. Its reach extended beyond theological dissenters to encompass those whose thoughts and ideas posed a threat to the Church's dominance. As the Inquisition expanded, it adopted increasingly stringent measures, particularly in regions like Spain and Italy where the Church's influence was pronounced. Courts of the Inquisition, presided over by members of the Dominican and Franciscan orders, employed interrogation and torture to compel confessions from individuals, often those who were innocent. The pervasive climate of fear it engendered led to a scenario where individuals turned against one another, stifling opposition and fostering an atmosphere of suspicion and compliance. The Inquisition's reach extended beyond theology, encompassing philosophical and scientific ideas that could challenge the Church's doctrines. This led to the destruction of a substantial number of books and manuscripts, depriving future generations of alternative perspectives and perspectives that could have contributed to a more nuanced understanding of history. This loss of ancient knowledge has been viewed by some as a setback to intellectual progress, delaying scientific advancements by centuries. Alongside this, the Church imposed rigid doctrines, marginalizing mystical and spiritual traditions that had coexisted within early Christianity, enforcing a singular interpretation of faith. This combination of censorship, cultural integration, and strategic alliances allowed the Church to mold society's worldview, ensuring its dominance. For centuries, the Church has been accused of suppressing alternative spiritual practices, such as Gnosticism and contemplative spirituality, which offer unique paths to connect with the divine. The conflict between Galileo and the Inquisition epitomizes this clash between the Church and scientific inquiry. By proposing a heliocentric universe, Galileo defied the Church's geocentric worldview, which positioned the Earth at the center of the universe. The Catholic Church has historically engaged in the suppression of alternative spiritual practices, such as Gnosticism and contemplative spirituality, which offer unique paths to connect with the divine. These practices, which were considered heretical by the Church, were targeted in the context of both the sacred and secular spheres. A notable example of this conflict is the case of Galileo Galilei and the Inquisition. Galileo's heliocentric model of the universe, which contradicts the Church's geocentric view of the world, symbolically positioned the Church itself at the center of creation. This disagreement, however, was not merely theological, but also extended to the Church's authority. The Inquisition's opposition to Galileo's ideas could be seen as a direct challenge to the Church's authority, as acknowledging error in scientific matters could potentially lead to questions about its spiritual authority as well. The Inquisition's influence extended beyond direct persecution, and it also employed censorship and propaganda as part of its strategy. The Church's symbolic significance as the nexus of creation is a notion that has been explored by theorists. Some theorists posit that the Church's opposition to Galileo's scientific ideas extended beyond mere theological disagreements, perceiving his findings as a direct challenge to its authority. The acknowledgement of error in scientific matters by the Church could have potentially opened the door for people to question its spiritual authority as well. In addition to direct persecution, the Inquisition wielded influence through censorship and propaganda, strategically utilizing art and literature to promote the Church's worldview and reinforce its role as the intermediary between humanity and God. Religious images depicting saints, angels, and biblical scenes were crafted to instill the belief that salvation could only be attained through the Church, thereby embedding its presence in every facet of daily life. By consolidating power through art, education, and the suppression of alternative ideas, the Inquisition cultivated a culture of conformity. The Catholic Church has exerted a profound and enduring influence on the visual arts, shaping generations of artists and cultural producers. The Church financed monumental works of art and carefully directed their messages and style. Religious imagery, abundant in medieval and Renaissance art, served as both expressions of devotion and potent tools of religious propaganda. The Church's use of art and literature as instruments of evangelism and cultural control has been a defining feature of its role in European society, from the time of the Inquisition until the present day. The Catholic Church wielded significant influence over medieval European art and culture, shaping both the artistic style and the thematic content of artistic productions. This influence was multifaceted, encompassing not only the financial support for monumental works of art but also the direction of their messages and stylistic features. The pervasive use of religious imagery in medieval and Renaissance art served a dual purpose, functioning both as a medium for expressing devotion and as a means of disseminating religious propaganda. The Church's authority was continually asserted through its support of grand sculptures, paintings, and architectural masterpieces, which served to remind the public of its role as the intermediary between the earthly and the divine. The Church's integration of religious devotion with cultural expression firmly established its position as a prominent influence in European society. The Church's patronage of the arts created a visual narrative that served to affirm its spiritual mission and supremacy. Michelangelo, for example, painted the Sistine Chapel ceiling, and Raphael, whose frescoes adorned the Vatican, produced works that conveyed the power, beauty, and inevitability of the Church's place in the world. The Church's patronage was more than an expression of faith, it was a calculated exercise in authority. Each masterpiece acted as a visual sermon, embedding the Church's ideology into the minds of the masses. By controlling the artistic output of the time, the Church shaped public perceptions of the divine, presenting itself as the sole path to salvation. As the Catholic Church's influence permeated all aspects of life, it cemented its role as an unparalleled force in shaping history, society, and personal beliefs. Through its strategic use of education, art, and suppression of dissent, the Church forged a legacy that defined Europe's cultural and intellectual landscape for centuries. This legacy continues to resonate, reminding us of the far-reaching influence of the Church. The Catholic Church wielded a profound influence over both the spiritual and secular realms, shaping Europe's cultural and intellectual landscape for centuries through its strategic use of education, art, and suppression of dissent. The Church's sponsorship of renowned artists and architects was not merely about beautifying places of worship, it was a calculated effort to embed its doctrines within the cultural psyche. Monumental Gothic cathedrals with their towering spires reaching toward the heavens were designed to inspire awe, and the Church's profound influence over both spiritual and secular realms is well documented. Its sponsorship of prominent artists and architects was not merely a matter of aesthetic enhancement, rather, it was a deliberate strategy to ingrain its doctrines into the cultural ethos. The construction of monumental Gothic cathedrals, with their soaring spires reaching toward the heavens, was meticulously designed to evoke a sense of awe and submission to the sacred. These structures served as a potent symbol of God's grandeur and, by extension, the Church's authority as his earthly representative. For a predominantly illiterate population, the visual opulence of these cathedrals functioned as a form of religious instruction, with intricate images and symbols adorning the walls conveying the Church's doctrines and instilling its teachings into the hearts and minds of the faithful. The integration of pagan traditions into the Christian liturgical calendar was a critical tactic in the Church's strategy to facilitate the acceptance of Christianity among newly converted populations. For instance, Christmas was strategically placed near the winter solstice, a period filled with pagan festivities, while Easter, celebrating Christ's resurrection, coincided with ancient spring festivals celebrating renewal and rebirth. This blending of traditions allowed converts to embrace Christianity without fully abandoning their customs, making the faith feel like a natural extension of their lives. Over time, Christianity became interwoven into daily life, replacing former deities and customs with a new set of beliefs and practices. Many symbols and rituals were also adapted from pre-existing traditions, existing cultures, thereby rendering Christianity more accessible and relatable. The cross, which had long been a symbol of life and strength in various ancient civilizations, became one of the most powerful symbols of the Christian faith. This deliberate syncretism was not an accident but rather a calculated effort to create a religion flexible enough to be adopted by diverse societies. By weaving Christian beliefs with respected ancient symbols, the Church constructed a spiritual framework and a cultural identity that united different groups under a common faith. This synthesis broadened the Church's influence. The Church's ability to incorporate Christianity into various cultures is evident in the increased accessibility and relatability of the religion. The cross, a symbol of Christianity, has been a prominent figure in various ancient civilizations, representing life and strength. The deliberate syncretism, or the combination of different elements, was a strategic effort to adapt Christianity to diverse societies. The Church strategically blended Christian beliefs with ancient symbols, creating a spiritual framework and cultural identity that united different groups under a shared faith. This synthesis expanded the Church's influence and solidified its presence in the collective imagination, bestowing upon it an aura of timeless authority. The relationship between art, culture, and religious power exemplifies the Church's adeptness in capturing the public's imagination, thereby solidifying its status as the supreme spiritual and social authority. By supporting renowned artists like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, the Church not only enriched Western artistic heritage, but also reinforced its own image as majestic, just, and divinely ordained. This fusion of beauty, power, and the Catholic Church has historically employed a multifaceted approach to its missionary work, leveraging art, culture, and religion to solidify its status as a preeminent spiritual and social authority. By supporting prominent artists such as Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, the Church not only enriched Western artistic heritage, but also reinforced its own image as majestic, just, and divinely ordained. This combination of beauty, power, and spirituality has enabled the Church to secure its role as a cornerstone of European society, extending its influence beyond the spiritual realm into the traditions, values, and daily lives of the people. During the age of European exploration, the Catholic Church played a pivotal role in the colonization of the Americas, where conversion to Christianity served both as a justification for territorial expansion and as a means of social control. As missionaries set out to save indigenous souls, they often suppressed local beliefs, replacing them with Christian doctrine. This mission was. Spirituality played a pivotal role in the expansion of the Church as a cornerstone of European society, extending its influence beyond the spiritual realm into the traditions, values, and daily lives of the people. During the age of European exploration, the Catholic Church played a pivotal role in the colonization of the Americas. Conversion to Christianity served both as a justification for territorial expansion and as a means of social control. As missionaries set out to save indigenous souls, they often suppressed local beliefs, replacing them with Christian doctrine. This mission was deeply intertwined with the ambitions of European empires eager to conquer and claim new lands. Many historians view this process of forced conversion as leading to the obliteration of entire cultures. Sacred temples, spiritual artifacts, and ancestral knowledge were systematically destroyed, erasing cultural identities and replacing them with European religious norms. The imposition of Christianity met resistance from indigenous populations, resulting in conflicts that marked the colonial experience. The Church justified these actions as necessary steps to eradicate paganism. The process of forced conversion was a central aspect of the ambition of European empires to conquer and claim new lands. Historians and scholars have long debated the role of the Catholic Church in this process, with some arguing that it led to the obliteration of entire cultures. This was achieved through the systematic destruction of sacred temples, spiritual artifacts, and ancestral knowledge, which resulted in the erasure of cultural identities and the imposition of European religious norms. The imposition of Christianity met resistance from indigenous populations, leading to conflicts that marked the colonial experience. The Church justified these actions as necessary steps to eradicate paganism and affirm the supremacy of the Christian faith. However, this approach came at a great cost. The erasure of languages, traditions, and spiritual practices that had defined indigenous communities, as well as the replacement of these traditions with church sacraments and doctrines, created a new reality grounded in European religious norms. While many religious leaders celebrated this expansion of Christianity as a victory of faith, its legacy is complex and controversial. Many view it as cultural erasure, where evangelization masked a broader agenda of domination and exploitation. It is important to note that not all missionaries. The Catholic Church's historical roots are deeply intertwined with the teachings and traditions attributed to Jesus of Nazareth and his apostles. However, the institution that evolved into the Catholic Church was shaped by a blend of factors, including early Christian communities, theological debates, ecumenical councils, and Roman influence. The adoption of Christianity by the Roman Empire resulted in the erasure of languages, traditions, and spiritual practices that had previously defined indigenous communities. Church sacraments and doctrines replaced these traditions, creating a new reality grounded in European religious norms. While many religious leaders celebrated this expansion of Christianity as a victory of faith, its legacy is complex and controversial. Some view it as a form of cultural erasure, where evangelization was used to advance a broader agenda of domination and exploitation. However, not all missionaries supported the use of force and conversion. Figures like Bartolomé de las Casas spoke out against the mistreatment of indigenous peoples, advocating for their rights and condemning the violence done in the name of faith. However, the Church's alignment with European monarchies often meant that its influence was used to justify domination, even as some missionaries attempted to protect new converts. The question of who truly founded the Catholic Church has captivated historians, theologians, and scholars for centuries. To unravel this question, one must look back to the cultural context of the 1st century AD, a time when Roman-occupied Judea was rife with religious tensions, expectations of a Messiah, and complex political landscapes, is of particular interest. The Catholic Church, as it exists today, has roots deeply embedded in the teachings and traditions attributed to Jesus of Nazareth and his apostles. However, the institution that evolved into the Catholic Church was shaped by a blend of factors, including early Christian communities, theological debates, ecumenical councils, and Roman influence. The role of Jesus and the apostles is of particular interest in this context. Jesus of Nazareth, whom Christians revere as the Messiah, is considered the spiritual cornerstone of the Catholic Church. His teachings, primarily conveyed orally and later documented in the Gospels, laid the foundation for the early Christian faith. While Jesus never used the term Catholic Church, his message of love, forgiveness, and salvation formed the essence of the Christian community. The term Catholic, derived from the Greek word katholikos, meaning universal, was not applied to Jesus of Nazareth, whom Christians revere as the Messiah, is widely regarded as the spiritual cornerstone of the Catholic Church. His teachings, primarily conveyed orally and subsequently documented in the Gospels, laid the foundation for the early Christian faith. While Jesus never used the term Catholic Church, his message of love, forgiveness, and salvation formed the essence of the Christian community. The term Catholic, derived from the Greek word katholikos, meaning universal, was not applied to the Christian Church until much later. Jesus' teachings emphasized inclusivity, forgiveness, and a new covenant with God, principles that would become hallmarks of the Christian tradition. Following Jesus' crucifixion, his apostles, especially Peter and Paul, became pivotal figures in spreading his message. The role of Peter is particularly significant in the development of the Catholic Church's identity. Known as the rock upon which Jesus would build his church, Matthew 16 verse 18, Peter's significance in the development of the Catholic Church's identity is unmistakable. Peter is often regarded as the first pope in Catholic tradition. Early Christian writings, such as those of Ignatius of Antioch and Clement of Rome, highlight Peter's authority in his martyrdom in Rome, submitting the idea that he was the leader of the fledgling Christian community. In the years following Jesus' death, Christian communities began to spring up across the Roman Empire. In the aftermath of Jesus' death, the nascent Christian community began to proliferate throughout the Roman Empire. These communities were characterized by a relatively loose organization, often convening in private residences, and were led by individuals chosen based on their spiritual charisma or through apostolic succession. The diversity among these communities was pronounced, with different factions interpreting Jesus' teachings in diverse ways. This early period was marked by theological diversity, with numerous sects offering divergent interpretations of Jesus' teachings. These communities interpreted Jesus' teachings in divergent ways, with various sects, including the Gnostics, Marcionites, and other early Christian groups, offering distinct interpretations. During this period, the term Catholic emerged to denote a universal or orthodox belief system that sought to unify Christian doctrine. The first documented use of the term Catholic Church is attributed to Ignatius of Antioch, who wrote in the early 2nd century. To the Smyrnians, emphasizing the importance of unity under one faith, Ignatius advocated for a hierarchical structure in which bishops held authority over their respective communities, a model that foreshadowed the Church's later organization. A monumental shift occurred in the 4th century when Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity with the Edict of Milan in AD 313. This edict granted Christians the freedom to worship openly and marked the beginning of a new relationship between the Church and the Roman Empire. Constantine's support for Christianity included funding the construction of basilicas, restoring property to Christians, and convening the First Council of Nicaea in AD 325. The Council of Nicaea marked a significant turning point, establishing a more uniform Christian doctrine and addressing theological disputes, particularly Arianism, which questioned the nature of Christ's divinity. Constantine's influence played a pivotal role in formalizing the Church's hierarchy and doctrine, transitioning Christianity from a persecuted minority to an institution intertwined with Roman imperial power. While Constantine did not establish the Catholic Church, his actions paved the way for a unified Christian orthodoxy that would later become synonymous with Catholicism. The development of church doctrine and structure in the post-Constantine era. Following the conversion of Constantine, Christianity continued to gain prominence within the Roman Empire. Successive emperors, particularly Theodosius I, further solidified the Church's power. In AD 380, Theodosius declared Christianity the state religion of the Roman Empire, thereby aligning the state with the Church and accelerating the spread of Christian doctrine. As Christianity grew, the Church developed a formalized hierarchy with the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, eventually recognized as the supreme ecclesiastical authority. Doctrinal debates continued. The councils of Ephesus and Chalcedon were pivotal in shaping the Church's identity. These councils addressed foundational questions regarding Christ's nature, the role of Mary as the Theotokos, Mother of God, and other significant theological concerns. The councils played a crucial role in consolidating the doctrines that would come to define the Catholic Church, fostering a uniformity of belief across Christian communities that set it apart from other sections. The role of bishops, priests, and deacons became indispensable in the administration of sacraments and pastoral care, thereby solidifying the clerical structure that characterizes the Catholic Church to this day. The position of the Bishop of the concept of Rome or Pope as the central figure of the Catholic Church evolved over the course of centuries. The notion of apostolic succession, which posits that the authority of bishops can be traced back to the apostles, became a cornerstone of Catholic ecclesiology. According to Catholic tradition, Peter, considered the first bishop of Rome, passed his authority to his successors, thereby establishing a line that continues to the present-day papacy. This continuity is a fundamental aspect of the Church's claim to apostolic authority. Throughout history, various popes have played critical roles in shaping the Church's policies, doctrines, and global influence. Pope Gregory the Great 540–604 is credited with significant reforms, including the establishment of the Gregorian chant. Meanwhile, Pope Leo the Great 100–461 bolstered the papacy's theological and political authority. This legacy of leadership contributed to the Catholic Church's enduring role as a spiritual and moral authority. The Catholic Church's history is marked by periods of unity as well as schism. In the 11th century, the Great Schism divided Christianity into the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches. A split rooted in theological and cultural differences played a pivotal role in the development of the Catholic Church, which emerged as a distinct institution with unique traditions, sacraments, and doctrinal beliefs. This evolution was influenced by various factors, including the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century, where prominent figures such as Martin Luther and John Calvin challenged the authority of the papacy and the teachings of the Catholic Church. These events led to a period of theological development, cultural influence, and historical circumstances that culminated in the formation of the Catholic Church as it is recognized today. Cultural differences played a pivotal role in the formation of the Catholic Church, which emerged as a result of centuries of theological development, cultural influence, and historical circumstances. The spiritual foundation for the Church was laid by Jesus Christ and his apostles, yet the institution of the Catholic Church came to fruition over the course of centuries through the influence of early Christian communities, Roman emperors, ecumenical councils, and the papacy. The founding of the Catholic Church is a complex process that cannot be attributed to a single person or event. Rather, it is a tapestry woven from the faith, struggles, and contributions of countless believers and leaders across generations. At the heart of the Catholic Church's founding is the figure of Jesus Christ, a first-century Jewish teacher whose life and teachings played a foundational role in the development of the Church. The movement that Jesus initiated ultimately resulted in a transformation of the world. Jesus was born into a Jewish world that was under Roman occupation, where many awaited a Messiah to liberate them from oppression. Contrary to the expectations of a political savior, Jesus taught a message that emphasized inner transformation, the kingdom of God, and love for one's neighbor. His teachings on humility, forgiveness, and justice challenged social and religious norms, gathering a devoted following. Although Jesus never used the term Catholic Church or prescribed a strict religious institution, his followers viewed him as the Son of God, and along the movement that Jesus initiated underwent a series of developments that ultimately led to a profound transformation in the world. Jesus was born into a Jewish world under Roman occupation, where many awaited a Messiah to free them from oppression. Contrary to the expectations of a political savior, Jesus taught a message that emphasized inner transformation, the kingdom of God, and love for one's neighbor. His teachings on humility, forgiveness, and justice challenged the social and religious norms of his time, gathering a devoted following. Although Jesus never used the term Catholic Church or prescribed a strict religious institution, his followers viewed him as the Son of God and a long-awaited Messiah. According to Christian belief, Jesus' resurrection confirmed his divine authority, inspiring his disciples to spread his message throughout the Roman Empire and beyond. This movement, rooted in Jesus' life and teachings, set the stage for what would evolve into organized Christianity, with the Catholic Church eventually emerging as the awaited Messiah. According to Christian belief, Jesus' resurrection confirmed his divine authority, inspiring his disciples to spread his message throughout the Roman Empire and beyond. This movement, rooted in Jesus' life and teachings, set the stage for what would evolve into organized Christianity, with the Catholic Church eventually emerging as its largest branch. #Apostolic Foundation and the role of Peter. The Apostles, particularly Peter and Paul, were central figures in the establishment of the early Church. Peter is traditionally regarded as the leader among the Apostles, especially after Jesus declared, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." Matthew 16 verse 18. According to Catholic tradition, this statement is regarded as Jesus' endorsement of Peter's distinctive role, thereby establishing the foundation for the papacy. Peter is believed to have led the nascent Christian community in Rome and is considered the first bishop of Rome, with his authority being transferred to subsequent bishops, thereby establishing an apostolic succession that the Catholic Church asserts as a cornerstone of its legitimacy. Paul, another prominent apostle, played a pivotal role in the dissemination of Christianity to non-Jews across the Roman Empire. His extensive travels and theological writings helped define the Christian message and doctrine, making Christianity a universal faith open to all, regardless of background. Paul's letters, which form a significant part of the New Testament, emphasize themes that would later shape Catholic theology, including salvation, grace, and the role of the Church as the body of Christ. #The early Christian communities and growth of the Universal Church. Following the Apostles' efforts, Christian communities began to spring up throughout the empire, particularly in cities like Antioch, Alexandria, and Rome. These communities often met in the context of residential communities. A diversity of interpretations and practices emerged concerning Jesus' teachings, giving rise to a range of beliefs. The term Catholic, derived from the Greek term for universal, first emerged during this period. It was likely employed as a means to distinguish orthodox beliefs from divergent interpretations that did not align with the mainstream. Christianity in the early 4th century, Emperor Constantine's conversion to Christianity, marked by the Edict of Milan in AD 313, legalized the practice of Christianity and signaled a significant turning point in the development of the Catholic Church. The term Catholic, derived from the Greek word for universal, emerged during this period as a means to distinguish orthodox beliefs from divergent interpretations that did not align with the mainstream. In AD 107, Ignatius of Antioch is believed to have become the first to explicitly refer to the Catholic Church in his letters, emphasizing the importance of unity and adherence to a single, universal faith. Ignatius advocated for a hierarchical structure led by bishops, who held authority over local congregations, marking the beginning of a structured church with a defined leadership. This hierarchical model laid the foundation for the development of the Catholic Church as we know it today. In AD 107, Ignatius of Antioch made the first explicit reference to the Catholic Church in his letters, emphasizing the importance of unity and adherence to a single, universal faith. He advocated for a hierarchical structure led by bishops who held authority over local congregations, thus establishing the foundation for the organized institution that would become the Catholic Church. The influence of Rome and the role of Constantine in shaping the Church cannot be overstated. The early 4th century marked a significant turning point for Christianity, and by extension, the Catholic Church, with the conversion of Emperor Constantine. The Edict of Milan, issued in AD 313, legalized Christianity, signifying the end of state-sponsored persecution of Christians. Sponsored persecution and allowing Christians to worship freely. The significance of this moment cannot be overstated. It shifted Christianity from a persecuted minority to a recognized and supported religion. Constantine's endorsement of Christianity included funding the construction of grand basilicas, convening the First Council of Nicaea in AD 325, and shaping the political and theological landscape of the Church. The Council of Nicaea was convened in AD 325 to address the Arian controversy, with the aim of unifying Christian doctrine. This council established the Nicene Creed, a statement of faith that remains central to Catholic doctrine. Constantine's influence marked the beginning of a close relationship between the Church and the state that would continue through the Middle Ages and profoundly shape the Catholic Church's identity and authority. The establishment of canon law and church hierarchy. As Christianity gained imperial support, the Church began to establish a more formalized hierarchy. The Church's organizational structure took on Roman administrative characteristics, with bishops presiding over local dioceses, priests overseeing congregations, and the Bishop of Rome emerging as a central authority figure. This hierarchical structure was instrumental in maintaining unity. The establishment of canon law and church hierarchy played a pivotal role in the development of the Catholic Church. As Christianity began to garner imperial support, the Church sought to formalize its organizational structure, adopting Roman administrative characteristics. This entailed the establishment of a hierarchical system, with bishops presiding over local dioceses, priests overseeing congregations, and the Bishop of Rome emerging as a central authority figure. This structure was instrumental in maintaining unity and doctrinal consistency as the Church expanded. In addition to its organizational structure, the Church also developed a comprehensive body of canon law, which served as a set of rules and regulations governing the conduct of its members. Canon law addressed theological matters, church discipline, and moral guidelines, further distinguishing the Catholic Church from other Christian communities. The concept of apostolic succession, the belief that bishops' authority derives from the apostles, played a significant role in the development of the Catholic Church. From the apostles, thereby reinforcing the legitimacy of the hierarchical structure and underscoring the pontiff's role as the successor of Peter and the leader of the universal Church. Hashtag. The papacy and the development of Catholic doctrine. The rise of the papacy stands as a seminal feature of the Catholic Church. By the late 4th century, the Bishop of Rome was widely recognized as the most prominent Christian leader in the Western world. Roman Empire. This authority grew over time with popes like Leo the Great 440–461 and Gregory the Great 590–604, expanding the papacy's influence. Pope Leo is particularly notable for defining the papal role in doctrinal matters, asserting that the Pope held the same authority as Peter. Theological development also played a crucial role in shaping Catholic doctrine. As evidenced by the councils of the Roman Empire played a significant role in the development of Catholic doctrine, with popes like Leo the Great 440–461 and Gregory the Great 590–604 expanding the papacy's influence. Notably, Pope Leo defined the papal role in doctrinal matters, asserting that the Pope held the same authority as Peter. Theological development also played a crucial role in shaping Catholic doctrine. Councils held over the centuries, including the Councils of Ephesus, Chalcedon, and the Second Council of Nicaea, addressed significant theological questions. These councils established doctrines such as the nature of Christ, the role of Mary as the Mother of God, and the veneration of saints and icons. The decisions made at these councils helped form the doctrinal foundation of the Catholic Church, distinguishing it from other branches of Christianity. The aforementioned councils, along with the period known as the Dark Ages, played a pivotal role in shaping the theological underpinnings of the Catholic Church and its profound influence on Western civilization. The Church's influence extended far beyond mere theology and worship, particularly during the decline of the Roman Empire. It served as a stabilizing force, preserving classical knowledge, promoting education, and instilling a sense of continuity. Monasteries, established by the Benedictine order and others, became centers of learning and literacy, safeguarding texts and fostering intellectual life during the so-called Dark Ages. The Church's profound impact on Western civilization is evident in its far-reaching influence, extending far beyond the realms of theology and worship. As the Roman Empire underwent decline, the Church emerged as a stabilizing force, playing a pivotal role in the preservation of classical knowledge, the promotion of education, and the establishment of a sense of continuity. Monasteries, established by the Benedictine order and other religious orders, served as pivotal centers of learning and literacy. These institutions not only protected invaluable texts but also fostered intellectual discourse during a period referred to as the Dark Ages. Throughout the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church occupied a central position in European society. It wielded significant economic and political power, owning vast lands and exerting influence on rulers. The Church's teachings profoundly influenced Western values, law, and art. Cathedrals, universities, and hospitals were established, and the Church's role in public life became intricately intertwined with Western identity. This duality gave rise to internal tensions within the Church. While some regarded colonization as a religious duty, others recognized the harm it inflicted on the communities it sought to convert. The Church also derived economic benefits from this process. Lands conquered in the Americas were frequently granted to religious orders for administration and oversight, making them landowners of vast colonial territories. These lands provided resources for missionary activities, the construction of churches and schools, and a means of securing loyalty from indigenous populations. Conversion to Christianity was often involuntary, and the Church's role in this process was a contentious one. It is important to note that conversion to Christianity was often accompanied by promises of protection from the abuses of secular colonizers. This strategy effectively positioned the Church as both a sanctuary and a powerful instrument of control. Over time, the Catholic Church became a dominant force in the social and cultural fabric of the Americas. Catholic rituals, religious festivals, and processions gradually replaced indigenous celebrations, and elements of native traditions were incorporated to make conversion more accessible. The Christianization of local customs became a tool for the Church to exert its influence over the populations it sought to convert. The Catholic Church has exerted a profound influence on the historical, cultural, and social development of the Americas. Initially, the Church was portrayed as a sanctuary and a powerful instrument of control, offering protection from the abuses of secular colonizers. Over time, the Church became a dominant force in the social and cultural fabric of the Americas. Catholic rituals, religious festivals, and processions gradually replaced indigenous celebrations, and elements of native traditions were incorporated to facilitate conversion. The Christianization of local customs became a tool for reshaping cultural identity, creating a new order where European beliefs and customs became the norm. Although religious leaders often viewed this expansion as a victory of faith, the legacy of this mission remains deeply debated, with many considering it a form of cultural erasure disguised as evangelization. As we conclude this exploration into the Catholic Church's historical influence, we encounter a narrative woven with both historical fact and enduring mystery. Reflecting on the centuries since then, we can see that the Church has continued to play a significant role in the history, culture, and society of the Americas. The Catholic Church has exerted a profound influence on the course of history, shaping the world in which we live and guiding beliefs and actions across the spiritual and temporal realms. This legacy is intricately interwoven with both historical fact and enduring mystery, and it is essential to approach it with critical scrutiny. The historical narrative of the Catholic Church is one of unparalleled authority over spiritual and temporal realms, and it has guided beliefs and actions for centuries. However, it is important to recognize the challenges that this legacy presents to our understanding of the Church's role and to encourage a deeper examination of the broader forces that have shaped human thought and experience. The Catholic Church's preeminence during the Middle Ages enabled it to influence society's collective perception of reality. Through its patronage of the arts, it fostered a worldview that aligned with its doctrines, ensuring that even the uneducated could comprehend its teachings through visual representation. By controlling education and aligning secular knowledge with religious dogma, the Church constrained the Catholic Church exercised a significant degree of influence over the medieval world, shaping not only spiritual and intellectual pursuits but also the secular knowledge and cultural heritage of society. By controlling education and ensuring that secular knowledge was aligned with religious doctrine, the Church effectively imposed its authority over both intellect and faith. This multifaceted role is a testament to the Church's profound impact on history. While the Church is often remembered for its preservation of ancient knowledge and cultural heritage, it is equally important to recognize its active role in shaping the information transmitted to future generations. This selective preservation, far from being passive, was a deliberate effort to influence the interpretation and development of history. This influence extended not only to the medieval world but also to the intellectual development of subsequent generations. By curating knowledge to align with its doctrines, the Church actively molded the minds of society, embedding its vision of reality as the accepted truth. This influence extended beyond mere spiritual guidance, reaching into every facet of life, from education and philosophy to art and science, creating. The Church has exerted a profound influence on the medieval world, shaping not only society's perception of truth but also its intellectual development. By meticulously curating knowledge to align with its doctrines, the Church actively molded the minds of society, embedding its vision of reality as the accepted truth. This influence extended beyond mere spiritual guidance, permeating every facet of life, from education and philosophy to art and science, creating a world shaped by the Church's interpretation of knowledge and morality. As we conclude this exploration, we are left with questions that resonate profoundly. Was this extensive influence a natural outgrowth of spiritual leadership, or was it a calculated exercise in control, woven deliberately into the very fabric of history? The legacy of the Catholic Church is complex, inviting us to look closely at the interplay between spiritual leadership and historical influence. The Church's profound influence on history and worldview, spanning centuries, prompts fundamental questions. Were its actions a natural outgrowth of spiritual leadership, or were they a calculated exercise in control woven deliberately into the very fabric of history? The Catholic Church, with its history of shaping society's perception of truth and maintaining an influence that echoes through time, stands at the intersection of faith, knowledge, and power. Its legacy invites us to look beyond surface narratives and consider the deeper forces that have shaped not only our understanding of history, but also our worldview. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history and faith. The origins of the Catholic Church are explored in this video. The Church's origins are replete with layers of intrigue, compelling us to look beyond the surface of what we have been taught. By examining the roles of faith, power, and culture, we find ourselves asking deeper questions about how these forces continue to shape our understanding of spirituality today. If this exploration was enlightening, please subscribe to Bible Stories to stay connected with more videos. The videos in this series offer an in-depth exploration of the intertwined themes of faith, power, and culture, prompting viewers to delve deeper into the historical and scriptural underpinnings that shape our contemporary understanding of spirituality. To continue this journey of learning and growth, we invite you to subscribe to Bible Stories, where you will find additional videos that delve into the annals of history, the sacred texts of the Bible, and the enduring truths that have shaped our religious beliefs. We kindly request that you express your appreciation for this video by liking it, contributing your insights in the comments section, and sharing it with your family, friends, and church community. Together, we can foster a deeper comprehension of God's Word and the historical evolution of faith. We eagerly anticipate your participation in the subsequent chapters of Bible Stories.